Hey, welcome back to the Contrarians. I'm Marco. This is Nick. This episode is about the Megadeth catalog. Before we get started, Martin Popoff, who's another one of our colleagues, has a great book out called Sweating Bullets, and you can get that on www.martinpopoff.com. So today we're going to look at the Megadeth catalog, and I'm going to ask Nick here what your favorite Megadeth album is. What you think is the best Megadeth album.
United Abominations. Now, before you tell me I shouldn't go outside without a helmet on, let me give some context to it. This album to me is a pure artistic output from Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine is really the heart and soul of Megadeth, and I think on this album, just because of the circumstances around it, like prior to this, he thought that he wasn't going to be able to play guitar anymore due to an injury. Elfson left the band, who's a big classical part of the band, and so there's no one else for him to really rely on, and thusly we get a pure Mustaine experience, and it comes through on everything. Like his voice to me is the clearest representation of what it's ever been. Now I understand a lot of people don't like that. Is that one of the things you were going to talk about?
Yeah, to me, Dave's voice on United Abominations sounds like it's kind of fading away. It sounds almost like he's as bored singing it as I am listening to it, to me. I feel like, I don't know if that's his age or if that's just his attitude going into it. I know he writes like all the lyrics, so that it has to be, he had to have been, interested in the music because he wrote all the music, right?
To me, I think it's the opposite. Honestly, I think his voice comes through much cleaner in the tracks. But oh my God, on songs like Sleepwalker, his voice I disagree is fully out there. He's growling, but you can actually get the low end of that growl on this, especially on those earlier Megadeth tracks. It sounds like someone took the vocal track and removed all the low end. And I understand you have to make room for the guitars, you have to make room for the bass, you have to make room for the drums. But with the modern technology and with a lot of bit of studio magic, I think they were able to carve out a nice little niche for his voice where, maybe he doesn't have the youth of his energy. I'll give you that. But this is a refined vocal experience to me. And one where he's experimenting a lot. Like, Dave Mustaine is on the border of rapping at some points because he's just ranting. There's several songs where he's not even singing for large portions. He's just talking. He's just expouting what he believes over music. And I think that's a really unique direction that you couldn't have done on any of his other tracks. The production just wasn't there, So I understand what you're saying about the voice, I really do. But what about a song like Washington Is Next? If you don't think his voice there is melodic but still capable of putting in that aggression when it's needed?
I mean, you've listed a couple of the strong songs from the album, Sleepwalker, Washington Is Next are strong songs. Basically, other than that though, I don't find much that really grips me about the album. And I find, leading up to this episode, probably the hardest part of doing research for this episode was having to listen to this album. But listening to it just kept making me want to go back and listen to the other Megadeth stuff, like Killing Is My Business and So Far So Good So What. Those are the albums. I'd listen to a couple of tracks off United Abominations and I'd say, oh my God, I need some real Megadeth, and I'd go back and listen to the older stuff. It sounds like an old Megadeth, and not like old as in classic, old as in they've aged, and it just doesn't sound. It sounds kind of very mediocre, I guess would be the best. It's not technically a bad album. It's not an awful album, but it's very mediocre, and it's kind of boring, and it just makes me want. It just harkens back. For me, I want to listen to the older albums.
I could understand what you're saying, and certainly the older albums are amazing classics. Rust in Peace has some of the greatest heavy metal songs ever written. Tornado of Souls, that could possibly be my favorite guitar solo ever. So I think I do get what you're saying. I totally understand that they're classic. They're very, very classic albums. But to me, because I've listened to them for over and over and over again. And keep in mind, United Abominations is the album that got me to go back and look at their catalog. So maybe I have a unique perspective, and that's why I'm such a contrarian on it. But when I listen to a song like, let's say, Tornado of Souls, I have a great reaction. But when I listen to a song like Dawn Patrol, I feel like the experiment didn't work. And United Abominations, it does kind of sound like a bit of an experiment, maybe by an older guy. But keep in mind that that's impressive in and of itself. That energy is a different type of energy. It's not a youthful aggression. This is grown man aggression, you know? Like song like Burnt Ice, like that's not like someone in his early 20s or 18-year-old, you know, being angry. That's easy to do. That's Dave Mustaine decades later still grinding out burning solos and burning riffs. You know, A Call to Arms, that's another song where, yeah, you know, he's added some melodic sensibilities. He's added some, maybe even some pop sensibilities. You can even talk about the remake of La Tout Le Monde. It pretty much sounds like a pop rock song, you know? But it's impressive that he can pull that off, and I think it's something, this album is unashamed of itself, you know? And you can tell, this is Dave Mustaine fully through the entire way.
Well, you bring up some points about, you know, technical ability. My problem with the album is not the technical ability or the production, because technically it's produced very well. My problem is more with the songwriting and the songs themselves. Like you brought up Rust in Peace. Rust in Peace probably has, out of my top 10 Megadeth songs, probably 5 of my top Megadeth songs are on Rust in Peace. That's probably what I would think is the best Megadeth album, in my opinion. You know, but, you know, like you said, you know, technical ability, that wasn't really the issue for me. The issue was more the songwriting. He's talking about some of the same old stuff that he's talked about in the past. He's talking about nuclear weapons. He's talking about war. He's talking about politics and stuff like this. In my opinion, he did it better on Rust in Peace. You know, he talks about nuclear war and Rust in Peace. He talks about the same kind of stuff. It's just more cohesive, and it just sounds, it puts the point across stronger. And it doesn't, you know, United Abominations sounds like it's purely like a Republican or right-wing album, where you can listen to Rust in Peace and get social commentary out of it that's not pointing you in a certain direction of a certain type of political party. If that makes sense to you.
That makes total sense.
It's
and
just
look,
a rocking album. Rust in Peace is a rocking album.
And then, you know, there's a lot of things that Dave Mustaine is espousing on this album that I personally might not agree with. But here's the thing. That's what he really believes, and that's what he's really putting into his music. It's a real artistic product, because at that point in career, he can afford to just make his own album, and he's the driving force behind it. He can do whatever he wants, and he did. I think on songs like Rust in Peace and things like that, even going to another album where he's political, like Euthanasia, Dream, you have to do research. You can't just listen to that record, that song, and know exactly what he's talking about, and you can get the feeling of his viewpoint, but you're right. It's broad enough that you could say, oh, well, I believe this, and so does he, because of this lyric or that lyric, you know? To me, that's a record label interference saying, tone it down, make it more accessible. And I might not agree with what he's saying on that record, and I think a lot of people don't, and a lot of people do, but I can respect that. If you listen to United Abominations, any song, you don't have to do any extra research. You know exactly what he's saying. You know exactly what he meant. And that punk element to me is important, because that's a huge aspect of thrash metal. So I see what you're saying, you know, it might not be the most palatable lyrically, but it's brutal, and it's artistically true to what he's trying to be. So, you know, love it or hate it, I would say it's that's what he honestly believes. If you look up Dave Mustaine, that's what he's about, you know. So I think there's something to be respected about having the bravery to put what you really think on record for all time, you know. It's just something to think about.
Okay, well, you know, we can look at album sales, but, you know, United Abominations was not certified anything. You can, you know, the older albums, you know, had almost all of them had, you know, platinum certifications. But let's just go song for song. Like, if we look at the opening of Rust in Peace, you got Holy Wars, that goes right into Hangar 18 after that. If you look at United Abominations, they're probably the two strongest songs off United Abomination, in my opinion. Sleepwalker and Washington is Next. To me, like, pale in comparison to the opening of Rust in Peace with, you know, Holy Wars and Hangar 18. And with Rust in Peace, it just gets stronger and stronger, where United Abominations just seems to get weaker. Rust in Peace goes on to do, Take No Prisoners, Tornado of Souls. Then you have, the finale with Rust in Peace, Polaris. Like, those are, it's a strong album. United Abominations has a couple of decent songs, but that's about it, in my opinion.
I see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're saying. A lot of the songs, well, really none of the songs on United Abominations are regarded as classics, I would say, to the Megadeth fan base. But that's kind of where the name of the show comes in, Contrarian. To me, a lot of, and please don't eviscerate me for this, a lot of the older Megadeth songs bleed into each other. A lot of these classics bleed into each other, Like, sometimes I'll be singing along, like, Take No Prisoners or something, and I'll realize, halfway through I started singing Polaris.
Well, it's cohesive. To me, that's cohesion, right? With me, United Abominations bleeds into each other, the songs, because they're dull. They're so dull, they all kind of sound the same type of dullness to me. I'm going to shoot a couple of reviews at you. Kyle Anderson at spin.com gave the album a 4 out of 10, stating, "Too many of these overly blustery blasts sound like entrance themes for professional wrestlers." And even as United Abominations was reviewed by the UN, who called it a rambling, Limbaugh-esque monologue which hits all the favorite themes of the fanatical right. Mustaine's dystopian fantasies were basically equal up to lunacy. That was Mark Goldberg from the UN Dispatch.
I can remember reading that as a youth and thinking, that's so cool, the whole world is against Megadeth. But to be honest, like, that does kind of lend back to what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that that this album is saying things that that I would personally say. But I think, like, it's hard not to respect the metalness of having literally the United Nations is against your album. That hasn't happened since, like, the 80s with Tipper Gore. You know what I mean? That sort of government coming down against your music. And I think that's where Dave Mustaine is really at his best. When he's got somebody to fight, because that guy is an angry man, and I think he does best when he has someone to aim his pissed offness at.
I'll give you that point. The UN reviewing your album, even if it's a negative review, is pretty cool. But let's agree to disagree on this one. I think, Rust in Peace. Peace. We didn't even touch upon Peace Sells, which is an awesome album.
That's
Countdown to Extinction, which is more of it's a little more commercial, but even that one seems. But United Abominations kind of seems like a paler Countdown to Extinction to me. But let's agree to disagree. Let us know how we did in the comments. Remember to check out Sweating Bullets at www.martinpopoff.com. Hit us back. Did we do good? Was there a certain Megadeth album? They got lots of albums that we didn't cover today. Was there one that you think is the best? Was there something that Nick said that was wrong? Was there something I said that was wrong? Let us know. We'll respond to your comments in the comment section and also in video form. So let us know how we did. Remember to like and subscribe.
And don't forget to ring that bell so you get our videos, notified about our videos.
And don't worry, we'll let Nick out of the house. Don't worry. After this episode.
They got me
without a helmet.
Never Sleep Alone. No, fuck, I fucked that up. It's not Never Sleep Alone.
Sleepwalker?
Yeah, Sleepwalker.
Come on, man, it's your favorite album. I know better than you.
We'll